Hello, this is Kyle Stallings. We're here at the Tomball Museum Center. It's March 19, 2024. We're here today to interview Mr. Elroy and Ms. JoAnn Hirsch and talk about their memories of this area. This is part of our ongoing oral history series where we take videos of some of the families that have made this area of North Harris County such a great place to live. You can see this video and our other videos on our YouTube channel at Tomball Museum. Mr. Hirsch, would you state your full name for us?
Elroy Hirsch, Elroy Marvin Hirsch.
And what's your wife's name? You want to tell us your name?
JoAnn Marie Keys Hirsch.
And spell Keys for us.
Kies.
Great, thank you. And JoAnn, where were your family from before this area?
It was Westfield, Texas.
And that's just a little further over.
Yes, close to 1960 is right off Alding Westfield Road is where our home was.
And I've heard of the Tottenham store. Was your family anywhere near that store over there?
I was the one that worked in that store.
Oh, you did? I've seen pictures of it. I don't think it's still there, is it?
No, it's not there anymore.
All right.
No.
How long did your family live in that area, roughly?
All my life.
Yeah.
That was left when after I moved into Houston to start work in 1953 is when I started a job in Houston. And so that's my life. Before that was all right there at Westfield.
What schools did you go to?
Spring High School, the buses came down and picked us up down Alding Westfield Road and picked us up and took us back into Spring High School.
And how did you meet Elroy?
You tell him he's interviewing you.
Well, it was a church gathering. It was St. Matthew's Westfield to have a social, and they were invited Salem to come over and have a social with us. And I was in charge of serving iced tea with the ice in a pitcher, and I never did that at home. Mama always put the ice in the glasses, and we poured the tea on top. But that day, I had to serve him tea with that ice in there, and I spilled tea on him.
That's a great introduction. So, how long have y'all been married?
68 years.
Sounds like it worked out pretty well, huh?
He went off to the service,
Yeah.
and I wrote to him in the service, and he came back, and we started going out together.
That's a great story. What were your parents' names?
My parents was Herman William Keys, and my mother was Catherine Caroline Schultz Keys.
Did you ever hear about how they came to choose that part of Texas to come live in?
Yes, my grandfather married Mrs. Strock, and he was in the military, and he shot her cow, is what I understood that he did, the story in the Klein community, because he was so hungry. And so she had children and all, and then later he married her, is what I understood about the family. And so they settled down in Westfield, and he married a Hildebrandt, is what my grandfather did. And so that her family was more down from Westfield area, Hildebrandts were.
Great. And Mr. Hirsch, what were your parents' names?
My father was Valentine Hirsch, and my mother was Augusta Bay. She was a Bay, B-A-Y, Hirsch.
And where were the Bay family from?
The Bay family was, I'm not sure, from Germany. I think it was Prussia where they was come from. It was not a part of Germany. It was a little country.
Would it be Prussia?
Prussia, yeah, okay, Prussia. Some Germans name it one way and the other English the other, in other words.
Yeah, okay.
But I always heard it was Prussia, but Prussia, yeah. That's where they was from. And my grandmother on the Hirsch side came from Wittenberg, Germany.
Wittenberg.
And my grandfather was born and raised in Cyprus. His parents came over from Germany, I guess, before he was born, or while he was born, or whatever.
And what was his name, your grandpa?
Julius Hirsch.
So do you know roughly what year or they came into the Cypress area?
No, sir, I sure don't. I don't remember what year they came in the Cypress area.
Did you ever hear stories about why they came over from Germany or?
Well, the times over there, Grandma would never talk about anything that happened over in Germany. I wish so many times that, I could have heard or, kind of talked to her about it, but she would not mention that. They had some, real rough times over there, and I don't know how she got on the boat or how they put her on the boat, but she had a sister there in Germany yet that she wrote back and forth to, and her brother came over, and I don't know if they came together now or not, but her brother came over, and I don't know any other siblings that came over from Germany. That's all I knew of.
What was his first wife's name?
Wilhelmina, and I don't know what her
maiden name?
She was. That was Grandpa's first wife, and I don't know what she died of, but she's buried over in the Rose Hill Cemetery, Rose Hill Sidle Cemetery, as some of them call it.
It's there near the Methodist Church. Is that
Methodist Church has? Yeah, they take care of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it looked like from Ancestry. I don't know if this isn't always right, but it showed a Wilhelmine Postman.
That's correct.
Is that the first
That
one?
is correct. Postman. Yeah, I couldn't think about that, but that come in 1875 to 9. She died in 1989.
1889.
1889. Yeah.
It looks like they had 4 kids together.
Yeah,
And then after
yeah.
she died,
Yeah.
he remarried Sophia Barbara Zwink
Yeah.
and had 3 kids. Is that
Mhm,
right?
that's
And
right.
That included your dad, Valentine.
Let's see, they had 4.
4 kids? Okay.
Valentine, Hugo, and that's
Lily.
and Lily. That's 3. Of 3, what was 2 boys
The
and 1
one,
girl.
the last one died. I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's 4, right? You had a Martin,
Martin was a baby, yes, and he died as a baby.
probably not been listed.
Okay. Died real young. Okay.
Yeah.
Your dad, Valentine, it looked like at some point the Hirsches moved over to Rose Hill area. When was that? What generation moved over here?
My grandfather was born in Cyprus, and how he acquired a property over there, I have no idea. And to Rose Hill, but that's where my father was born in Rose Hill.
And whereabouts was the farm there where your father was?
Right on the corner of Cypress Rose Hill, and at that time was the old Tomball Waller. As you come down Cypress Rose Hill, it was right in that corner right there. Tomball Waller run this way, and Cypress Rose run into the. Well, Grandpa Hirsch and Grandpa Bayer. That was Bayer property across the road. They got in an argument one time, I understand. This is what my dad told me.
Mm-hmm.
They got in an argument about property lines. So Grandpa said, he said, I'm going to just give you that. He said, you take it. And that's how they settled the argument. My grandfather was a guy that would never back down from nobody. But he just told him he'd given, the acre that time, I remember Dad telling me that he could have bought acres over there for 50 cents an acre.
Wow. It's amazing compared to what it is
And
now.
now you couldn't even buy a grain of sand for 50 cents.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Because our property went down to the creek was the boundary line. Center of the creek was the property line.
Mm-hmm.
And
At that time too, it was open stock lots too, right?
open land, open stock law.
Did your family have a brand to keep track of the
Oh
cattle?
yes, they had a brand.
You remember what the brand
H
was?
Diamond.
H Diamond.
H Diamond. And today it's registered in my name now. I don't know if I did not yes, I did re-register it. I believe I did.
Can you draw what your brand looked like? I can see that.
It was a H.
Very cool. So a diamond
Like a diamond.
out to the right of the H.
Mhm.
So did you know Norman Freilich out there?
Oh, yes.
Did he ever make you branding iron?
Oh, yes. Yes, sir.
Do you know if he branded y'all's on the wall? You know, he had all those brands.
Yes, sir. It was on the wall. Yeah.
Speaking of Norman Freilich, did you ever watch him work his forge? You know,
Oh,
when he was
yeah.
doing his blacksmithing.
Yes, sir.
What do you remember about that?
Well, he was something else with that. He was, he'd be working on that thing and he'd flip that iron up and catch it and put it in the bucket and cool it and then he'd hammer it out what he wanted to hammer out on it.
Yeah.
'Cause he was something else like that.
Who were your neighbors around this area south of the creek?
Sidles lived across the road from us.
How do you spell their name?
Sidel. Sidel.
I've seen some that are Seidel. Is that some of the same family or?
Siedel is what the way they pronounce that. Yeah.
Seidel.
There was two brothers, Otto and Emil Seidel. Otto Seidel lived right across the road from us, and Emil lived down the road. He run a grocery store at one time, a little grocery store, and I don't know, he farmed and things like that, you know. Otto was farming, and well, he had a few cattle too, you know.
And how many other neighbors? Do you remember any other neighbors that area?
Oh, there was the Bradigams, Schultz, and
Which Bradigams were they?
well, the old Bradigam was George Bradigam. That was the old Martin Bradigam and Arthur. Edna was one of the girls. Emma was one of the girls that was born on the old Bradigam place, and Albert was one of his brothers. You know. Albert, Martin, and
Martin. Did they have one that died in World War II? Do you remember that?
no, I think you're talking about Fred Bradigam across the creek.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, that was my cousin.
Okay.
That was my grandpa's first wife, daughter,
Okay.
and she married a Bradigam, Fred Bradigam, Friedrich.
All right.
And yeah, he died, it was Walter Bradigam was his name. Yeah, he died when he got in Philippines in Luzon.
I heard some people call him Little Walter.
Little Walter, yes. He was a tall guy. He was tall. He was 6 foot something.
So, what year did you graduate high school?
In 40, I quit and went to work in rice farm. I went to 11th grade, finished 11th grade, and it was in 47 or 48, late 40s anyhow.
Mm-hmm. I guess you were too young. You missed out on the World War II.
I missed out on the World War II, but I caught the Korean.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad was in World War I, my brother was in World War II, and I was in the Korean.
And where did you serve during the Korean War?
I served in the northern part of Japan is where I was. It was just right across the strait from Russia. And I did go into North Korea when the ceasefire was signed. I was in the artillery. And I was close enough where I could hear the mortars and the machine guns tapping all night and all day just about. It wasn't a time that we wouldn't hear some gunfire going off. And then we went back to the northern part of Japan, which is Hokkaido. And there we stayed there and then we went back when the ceasefire was signed. We was on the coast and we was fixing to go in and we were going to fix it. We was loaded up so but you couldn't get another round of ammunition on any of them trucks, you know, artillery.
Had you packed tight in there,
It
huh?
was packed tight in there, yes, sir.
Where did you go to school?
Sci-Fair High School was my high school in Salem, Rose Hill up here as well, Tomball. Salem's parochial school where I went for my first 8 grades.
So that Salem school, I understand the building's still there, kind of back behind the church.
I think they still got the old school. They added on to it, but when I went there, it was just a one room building, you know.
Yeah.
And the heat was old wooden stove, and if you didn't sit right there by it, you froze to death back in the back.
Well, I've heard of a teacher named Bisher. Did you have
Teacher
him?
Bisher was a teacher, and he taught 8th grade from first grade. We didn't have kindergarten. First grade all the way to 8th grade.
Remember any of the teachers you had there?
How many teachers they had there?
No. Do you remember any of the names?
Just one teacher.
Oh, he was the only one.
He was the only one. Yes.
I found this photo from one of the books. Is this the school?
Yeah. This is the old school. This is some of the front of the new school here.
Yeah, I guess it's the same building. They
It's
just
the
added
same
on to
building.
the
Just
side.
they just added the front to it there. Yeah.
Okay. Let's hold
But yeah,
it up
that's
for the
what it
camera.
was right there. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
That old Bill up here, he was Bill Tower up there. That
What memories do you have from back then? That school.
well, like I say, in the wintertime, the boys had to bring the wood in for the fire. You know, the teacher would go in there and light the fire up before the school started, but we had to bring the wood in. You know, from outside, and you didn't really had his classes, but he put. Every which grade that he was teaching at that time went to the front. The rest of us all went to the back. Man, it was cold back there in the back. You know, sitting back, you know. All the older kids sat in the back, the younger kids sat in the front, is what it was. And he had 8 grades that he took. And all 8 grades, he went through all 8 grades in one day. And at that time, if you misbehaved or got in trouble, you got a whipping from the teacher. And if you got home and you didn't tell the your parents, you got another one from them. If the teacher had to tell them, you got another whipping from them. So you just well go home and tell them you got a whipping. And that's it. I misbehaved and I got a whipping.
Yeah.
If you didn't, but you got another licking from when they found out about it.
Yeah.
And then they turned that into a colored school. The colored kids went to school there.
So I understand that back there when you were in school that the separation between Tomball and Cy-Fair was maybe along Telge Road,
That's it.
and you
Yes,
were
sir.
on the
Yes, sir.
Cy-Fair side of
Yes,
that?
sir. Mhm.
All right.
Mhm.
That's why you went to high school there?
That's right. Of course, now if you was on the other side, the Tomball district, and you went to Salem School, or Salem Church, you automatically went to Salem School, you know. Then when you got through 8th grade, then you went to Tomball, and we went to Cy-Fair.
Okay. Then it was only later that they changed that around to
Yeah.
where a lot of the kids in Rose Hill ended up in Tomball in
Yeah,
later years.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. It came to Tomball district, yeah.
So we were talking earlier about who was in which war. So your brother was World War II, you said?
Yes, sir.
What was his name?
Wilbert.
And what did he do during World War II?
He was in the Army Air Force. Now, he didn't have anything to do with plane, but Army Air Force is what his was in. Now, but he was in Luzon with when the war ended. He didn't see much action, I don't think, but he did go to see my cousin Walter's grave when he was, or where he was buried at. And then later on, they dug him up and brought him in, and he's buried here at the Salem Cemetery. Then his body is
Yeah, brought him from the Philippines back
from the
home.
Philippines back over here, Luzon. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you said your grandfather fought World War I. Did you ever hear anything?
My dad.
Your dad. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Do you remember hearing stories about his World War I service?
Well, yes, he said when the World War I was ended, but they didn't know nothing about it till 3 days afterwards, and he was in France at that time. He said, we were just killing each other by one right after the other, and the war was over. But we didn't. He said we didn't know about it. We kept fighting. He said.
They tell you what kind of how the fighting went. What was he involved in?
He was in artillery, and in trenches. He said they had trenches, and the old people, they would talk about it, like my grandmother and my grandfather. They wouldn't talk about the old days. They had it so rough and so hard that they wanted to forget about them things. Like Grandma, she just wanted to forget about what went on in Germany and just live her life here in the United States.
So, what I was going to ask you and your wife both on your families. Did any of your families still like to speak German?
Well, I do, but I don't have anyone to talk to, and I forgot. So much. I couldn't even talk English when I went to first grade, and it was tough on me, I tell you. And well, they taught English and German. Teacher Bishop taught both languages, And then when World War II come along, then you couldn't talk English. You couldn't teach. The German. You could talk English. You couldn't teach English, nothing, or German.
Yeah.
So that was out altogether.
Yeah, since we were fighting Germany, it wasn't.
My grandmother, she could talk very little English. My grandmother, Sophie, But everything. My grandfather, he was had a stroke, and I guess he was almost 4 years that he was bedridden. Of course, in them days, they didn't have everything like they have now. That they could exercise them and things like that. But he couldn't. From the waist, he was paralyzed from the waist down.
So, do you know what type of German that you spoke? What dialect was that?
It was just it wasn't the Low German or anything like that. We just talked to German as.
Was there a special Texas twang to the German, or do you know?
Up in, up further up like Giddings and up in them, even Brenham, they talked a different German that we've talked in here in Rose Hill or Tomball. Yeah. But they could talk both ways. We had mother had families over there, and we went and visit. Well, they did a lot of their shopping in Brenham. My father did when I remember going there.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have electricity or nothing in the house until in the 40s, I think, after the war, we finally got electricity. Mm-hmm. Other than that, it was just coal oil and lamps and kerosene lamps and lanterns and things like that. You didn't have no electricity.
Do you remember growing up? I guess you were speaking German growing up, so you must have been thinking in German. Did you have to make a change eventually?
It was rough from when like I said, I couldn't even talk English, very little English when I went to first grade, and then but it was I guess maybe it left me behind a lot, and even in high school and things like that, that I just wouldn't. You never got schooled before like now. Gosh, tiny little things they didn't go into school, and preschool and all of that stuff. They knew more about when they went to when they go to first grade than we even dreamed about knowing in school, counting and ABCs and stuff like that.
Ms. Hirsch, what about German in your family?
Well, Mother and Daddy spoke German to each other, but I didn't pick it up because I was later in life, and with the war coming in, that was not supposed to be spoken.
Yeah.
So I didn't get the German like they do.
It's no longer socially acceptable, I guess.
That's right.
So
Did you hear about other families around this area talking German, particularly?
Everybody talked German. German was the main language. Yeah.
Rose Hill is a lot of German families around.
Yeah, a lot
there,
of German community. Everybody knew each other. You pass each other on the road. You have to stop and talk. You just didn't go by like you do now. Just go by and maybe you're lucky if you wave at them or something like that, But I remember driving at least 150 head of cattle up and down Cypress Rose Hill. And if you made a car with your cattle, they pulled to the side and wait till you drove your cattle by, and then they would go back their ways. And then when they met up with you with the horseback riders, well, they had to stop and talk there. The cows, they just grazed along the ditch, and that way. And so they just glad to get that green grass off the road, And but it was just so much different from what it is now. Now all this computer and all of this stuff they've got has left me way behind. I can't. This texting and emailing and all of that. I get that stuff, and I told my doctor. I said, "Don't do that to me. Just call me." And I said, I got a phone, but I wish I could just take that thing and just throw it as far as I could see it and never go back to it."
Yeah. It's in the old days, they didn't have phones and didn't even have cars.
Well, if lucky if you had a phone. The Seidels that lived right across the road from us, they had a phone, 6 on the party line, and when it rang, whether it was your ring or whether it don't matter, when the phone rang, everybody run to their phone and listened in what you was talking about, what the neighbors was talking about.
It's sort of the entertainment of the day. Huh?
They could. Everybody knew what was going on in the community. Yeah.
Wow.
6 of them to a line, and that was the limit, that they could hook up together in them old ring. And you had them a long and a short, 2 longs, 3 longs, or a short, or something like that on that little crank there. That was your number, what your phone number was.
So when you'd hear it ring differently, you'd know it's for you, or how did that work?
You could when the phone rang, yeah, it had a little different sound, I think, or something like that, or in that way. But anyhow, all of them picked it up at the same time.
Yeah. So your grandfather is Julius P. Hirsch? Is that his name? And who was he married to?
Sophie Swink.
Yeah, and before that, Wilhelmina.
Wilhelmina.
Right.
Wilhelmina was Bozeman, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he was the first one to live on that place.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, going back to your dad, Valentine, I found this other. I didn't get the other page. Do you recognize this? This looks like his band. Did you know he was in the band?
Yes, he was a band. They had the band. Yes.
You know what he played in the band?
He played the trumpet in the band.
You know which band that was he played in?
They just called it the Rose Hill Band, I think. And what they did, they played the dances and things like that. And
So that's what it says there, Rose Hill Band.
Yeah.
Do they play at the churches, or where do they play?
Dances and weddings and things like that, I believe. Yeah.
Houses.
It's houses,
Oh, cool.
No, I don't think it's.
Had the instructor was Otto Seidel.
Yeah, Otto Seidel.
Had some neighbors, Arthur and Uric Benegas.
Yeah, Benegas.
Your dad,
Valentine.
Walter Fairley, Willie and Arthur Yeager,
Mm-hmm.
Reinhard Krug.
Yeah.
Was the Krugs living close around that area?
Yes, they did. But just off of, well, let's see, what can I say? Oh, about when we're on this side of Holly Creek Estates over there.
All right, just a little bit further west.
So a little bit further, well, say
East.
East.
Oh, east.
East, yeah, east.
That's right.
That's
yeah.
right out there.
Bishop Road, I think it was.
No, not on the Bishop Road, it wasn't.
Not that.
Well, it's Bishop Road come in way late. Bishop wasn't rare at that time. But yeah, part of that property, I guess, was some of the Krug property where Bishop Road is,
All right.
off of 2929.
And then Arthur Coves was in the band.
Mhm.
I've heard of the Coves and Coves Road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Herbert Martins.
Yeah. Edward Zahn.
Yeah, Ed Zahn.
And Frank Mischke.
Mm-hmm.
Where did the Mischkes live?
They lived up around off of Bar Road up in there, a little further west
Further toward Walter.
from where Dad and them lived. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, they rode horseback, and I don't know how they all got together again or how the band ever started, but they had a little band, and they played New Year's Eve. They played and go from house to house and play.
Sound like fun.
Yeah.
So what were some typical German foods that you remember growing up that your family would have around this?
Well, when you butchered a hog, you never nothing went to waste except the squeal. That's all.
How did you use parts of the hog?
Intestines was used for sausage. the blood was made from blood sausage. They made blood. When I was young, a little kid, and when Dad would butcher a hog, he would stab it in the neck. And that hog would be kicking and wiggling around there, you know. And Grandma was standing right outside the fence. I had a big old bowl there, you know, pan. And I had to put that blood, get that blood from that pig into that bowl. And it was hard to do. And you had to keep stirring it. One hand you had to bowl the bowl, and you had to stir it, and that it would
Congeal.
yeah, congeal, you know. And I had to keep stirring that stuff until it got cool, you know. And she was outside the stuff, and she always hollered, "Junga ria, ria, ria. Boy, just stir, stir, stir." And she was hollering at me. And I would stir all up good, and of course, some of it spilled out. Man, that was a no-no to have that, to spill that blood, you know.
Yeah.
And they didn't butcher on they usually butchered a big hog that weighed anywhere from 600 or something like that, you know, and a calf, and sometimes 2 hogs. If you didn't have a big hog, 2 hogs, and a yearling. And they was butchering for 2 or 3 days. But they had to catch a norther that came in them days. It seemed like now it blows in and it blows right back out again. Next day it's warm. In them days it just stayed cold for several days. And that's where they made their sausage. And the smokehouse was just full of smoked sausage. Ham. Dad cured his own ham, his own bacon. That was all cured.
How long did you have to smoke it to get it kind of cured up?
That had to be for a couple of weeks or so, several weeks before it, and it was so hard when it just pop when you break it. It just pop. It's so hard and dry, you know. If you're going to butcher, your neighbors would come over and help you. You pick up a hammer and start sawing, or a nail and sawing. Neighbor would come over. "What you doing, neighbor?" "Oh, I'm gonna build me a little chicken house here, something this or that, you know." "Well, let me go home and get my sawing hammer." He'd go home and get his sawing hammer and come back, and everybody would help each other, you know.
Yeah.
They didn't even have to ask him. They'd just come over. They'd hear you doing something. They'd come over and help you. And William Tressler was, I know Dad and Mother went over there, and Silas went over there and helped. That was all kinfolk to Silas, you know. And he was freezing. It was below, freezing weather. And he'd ask his wife, he said, "Did you think it's cold enough to butcher?" And she said, "Butcher. Go ahead and butcher. It's freezing," she said.
Did he have a recipe, or did he just
Oh
go
yeah,
by-
they had that recipe that they made that. Yeah,
I didn't know. If it was,
mixed up the salt and stuff like
I didn't know
that.
if it was something in his head, or if he just had something actually written
Pepper
down.
and stuff like that. They had their own. They could figure that out in their head how much to put in there and this, that, and the other, and they'd mix that up and salt it down, and you'd stand there with that old stuffer, you know, pulling up, drinking that stuffer, you know, and stuff like that.
So it was like a hand crank stuffer.
Hand crank, yeah.
All right. Was there a separate machine that you would hand crank to grind it?
Oh yeah.
So you grind it
Yeah,
first.
that's at first. We had that old hand grinder, and that's how we grind the meat up with it. And then Frederick's store, the Anton Frederick, they had a little place there that they had set up where they had when the electricity come in. They had an electric grinder there, and it was 10 cents a tub to grind that. You had a tub of meat, 10 cents.
And
You
then,
take it up there and grind it, and then take it back home.
then you had to do the hand crank stuffer.
Just hand crank stuffer, yeah.
And so how did it work after you wanted to put up some sausage after you smoked it? You said you put it in lard?
They had them real big crops. I think 15, 20, up to 20 gallons, I think, crops, you know. And they put it in the lard and that, you know.
And so
Not all of it. Some of it just stayed up there, and it would stay pretty good, you know, until it started mildewing, and that you'd go cattle rounding up cattle or something like that, or ride that you know you wasn't going to be hunting for dinner, you pick your link of sausage up and a piece of homemade bread, and that was your dinner that day.
During the break, we were talking about sauerkraut. What do you remember about that?
Well, it had that old board that had that blade on there, and you shred it with that, you know.
Shred the cabbage.
Yeah, shred the cabbage and put it in a big old crock again, and put salt in there, and then put a brick on top of that.
Well, you stomped it, didn't you?
Huh?
You stomped it?
Oh yeah, you stomped it. Yeah, you
What about
stomped it. Made
sauerkraut?
sauerkraut. You stomped the sauerkraut. You know, made it. And got the juice. You got the juicing. You know, and you put it in that crock, and then you grandma tied around it. Of course, they had a kind of a cloth that they put that brick in. They kind of wrap that brick in the cloth just to keep it down in the juice.
Mm-hmm.
And then she had a cloth that she put it on top of it, and sometimes a board on top of that. And I loved that raw sauerkraut. And I'd get in there and sometimes get me a handful of it and eat it. Boy, I caught it. I don't know. I fed everything back just exactly the way it was, but somehow or another she knew I was in there. And oh man, did I catch it from her. She knew that I was in her sauerkraut again. But the main meal was potatoes, what you growed. Potatoes and your vegetables that you growed was our main meal, you know. We growed everything that we eat, except anything, the flour and the sugar and stuff like that is what we bought, you know, Dad would buy.
What other kind of recipes or homemade food fixings did you remember doing back then?
Well, Grandma, she always had, somehow or another, she had, of course, cheese. She had a lot of cheese, you know. She would have like they have now, a fried batter, you know, or roll it out, put your cheese in there, and fold it over, and then fry that, you know. Oh man, I tell you, that was some good stuff. That was one of my favorite ones. And all they had was the butter was all homemade butter, and sauerkraut, potatoes, and like I said, they didn't buy no vegetables. They didn't have to buy no. The only thing that they bought was flour and salt and pepper and things like that. You know what they bought.
So going back to your dad's generation, when they did need flour or sugar, where did they go to get it?
Well, they could go to the old, like the FedEx store. That was the old FedEx store there. It's when I was coming up, you know. They had flour and stuff there. They had just anything you could buy. Anything you wanted over there, just about feed and groceries and stuff like that, you know. And when I grew up, Dad was the old farmer's market on Preston Street in Houston.
Downtown Houston?
Downtown Houston. That was the old Preston, right on the Buffalo Bayou.
Mm-hmm.
And Friday nights was his time to go to the market with his vegetables, you know. And you'd fill that bushel of potatoes up. You could just top it off, you know. And time you get to Cypress, it was down low. And that rough road was so like a shell road, it was like a washboard. And it was so rough. They'd grade it, but it didn't take long. It would the same way again. It just
Shake the potatoes out of the
just settle them, you know.
Oh, settle them.
Yeah.
I see. At that time, was he in a vehicle, like an old pickup, or was he
He
still?
had no pickup. He had a Model T ton truck, I think it was, that he had at one. That was before my time now. And then I can remember he had an old Dodge touring car. Then Hall Motor Company opened up here in Tomball sometime ago. Well, they'd been open for a pretty good while. And the first truck that I can remember that he had was a 26, I think, 26 Ford pickup, I believe what it was, half ton. And that's how he sold his vegetables. And then A.B. Klein moved from Spring to Tomball and opened up that store right where the bank, the old bank was, where the thrift store is now.
Yeah.
That was the old Klein grocery store,
Yeah.
And he was butcher yearling. He run a ranch and he farmed, and had a butcher slaughterhouse where he butchered all the animals, and he supplied with beef for his brother. Hugo was running a butcher's or grocery store in Houston.
White
in the
Oak Drive.
Heights. And
What was that?
White Oak
White
Drive.
Oak Drive in the Heights.
Yeah.
And he would take meat there, and different ones, and that's how he made his money. Besides that, but every Friday night he furnished A.B. Klein with his meat over there. He had a tall colored guy working for him. Well, he had about three. Sometimes he had three colored guys working for him. 50 cents a day. And 3 meals a day. That was good wages at that time. And he was 6 foot something. And if you ever knew A.B. Klein, Eddie Klein, he was just like Robert was. Robert has always got some joking going on. He had to measure. Bud was his name. Bud Turk. And he had to measure Bud. He'd measure him, see how tall he was, whether he growed it. He had to stoop down to get into the store, in the doors. He had to kind of stoop down to get in there.
Big man.
And he hauled the meat in his 36 Ford pickup. That's what it was, 36 Ford pickup in the back end. And of course, that truck was used for anything and everything. But he washed it out real good and put a sheet on the bottom and a tarp. Then he put another sheet there, bed sheet there, and laid his meat on that, and covered it up. And that's how he took his meat to the grocery, to the store, to sell it, A.B. Klein.
Earlier during the break, y'all were talking about making homemade wine. Who was doing that, and how did they do it?
Everybody made homemade wine for their own self. Now, Grandpa and Dad made it. Grandpa made it by the barrels, and he had anywhere from 5 to 6 barrels or 7 barrels of wine that he made in a spring, in a year.
What did you make it out of? What kind of grapes?
Mustang grapes. He had his own orchard, and it was trellised. I guess maybe 3/4 of an acre or something like that he had. And I remember when I was out of school when I was little, when Grandpa couldn't make it more, Dad took over and made wine. And during the Prohibition, they sold wine. The law knew about it. The local law did. And they'd come from Houston and buy wine around mine. And then when the farmers and other old people didn't make wine, and when they'd go to Houston, they'd put the wine in the bottom of a basket, and they filled the rest up with potatoes. And they delivered that to Rice Hotel or some of them places that they had orders to take it. That's how they made. That's how they made a living anywhere they could make a living, because it was during the Depression and things like that.
Yeah.
And I just before I knew about it, but Grandpa had a rubber hose about 2 foot long or something like that, And somebody wanted to come up like you want to come up, no, I want to maybe a jug of wine or something like that, It was different. Dad never did do that, but somehow or another he had a different taste to him or something. Maybe a little more sugar, a little less sugar or something like that, He'd give him that hose and they'd stick it in that barrel and they'd take a swallow of it, By the time they got around to everything, they didn't know whether they're going to what they're going to buy.
Yeah.
So,
It was the early wine tasting, huh?
Yeah, you had to taste the wine before you got it. Yeah. And we started making wine, and we made wine till, well, I guess 5 years ago when I moved to Southern Nights over here. When her and I moved to Southern Nights, that's when we quit making wine. And of course, there was prohibition, you know, like I say, he wasn't allowed to sell it. And him and, well, Mr. Tice, Ali Tice, remember him?
Yeah, I remember hearing about him.
And Shorty Poland, there was the constables here in Tomball. Well, Ali Tice would come out there one time, and he'd come out there and he asked Dad, he said, Valentine, he said, you know if anybody around here is making wine? He said, no. He said, I don't know about that. And he knew, both of them knew they was, he knew they was making.
You still had to ask the question.
So anyhow, they got to talking there and things like that. Ali said, about to leave. Well, he said, I better move along. But he said, I just want to warn you. He said, there's two of Neil Polk's deputies, he was the sheriff of Harris County. They've been out here asking questions about somebody making wine. And he said, they come up and they said, well, we told them we don't know nothing about that. No, he said, there's nothing like that's going on around here. So he just keep it down just for a little while, he said. And he said, they'll go back to Houston again. And he said, you can go about your business. He said, but I just want to warn you. He said, by the way, you ain't got to happen to have a jug. Yeah, he said, I've got a jug.
Different way of life back then.
Yeah, they knew Dad. Well, Ali Tice, they was good friends, you know, and everything. And yeah, they knew he was making wine. They knew everybody around there was making wine. But
Yeah.
like I say, you have to do it to make a living. That's it.
We've heard that a lot around Tomball. Everybody had to do a lot of different jobs. You couldn't just have one job. You had to do everything to make a living, right?
Well, when we were making wine, even I was making wine, I had quite a few, you know, friends come over with wine, you know. Well, I had to pull out my, no. I said, I can't take that. I said, I don't have a liquor license. I said, no. But you know, when they left, there was always I had a little brew house there, and there was always a $10, a $15, a $20 bill laying on. I don't know where it come from.
What was the first car you ever remember driving and learning how to drive?
First car we had, well, I had that old, what was that, Mercury Club Coupe. You remember that one? No.
Yeah, I remember it, but you got rid of it immediately when you got back from the service.
Well, I mean, they let it run down, and I thought they would drive it and keep it up, but it was just a wreck when I got home from the service. 2 years, they just let it set up, and it just ruined. So, gosh, there was a Mercury Cup Coupe, and I forget what year it was. 40-something, I believe it was, wasn't it? Early 40, I believe it was.
What vehicle did you first remember driving?
36 Ford pickup, Dad's pickup. Then he got a 39 Ford touring car, and I drove it, you know. And I think that was about the first car that I had was that Mercury Club Coupe, Mercury Club Coupe. Man, I'll tell you, I thought, man, I had a car then. It was a good car.
Did y'all have a tractor out there on the
Oh,
place?
yeah, we had, well, when I come up, it was just horses and mules, you know. Mules. Dad didn't have no horses, except riding horses, and but mules. And he brought a Avery tractor. For Avery, I think they went out of business pretty quick. It was a one-row Avery tractor what he bought. And that's what he had for farming Dad, you know. Yeah, I had to spend many a mile behind a mule. Had an old mule called him Pete, and he must have had a watch or something. But when it come about 11 o'clock, and I got a little closer to 11:30, them old ears would go like this. It's just like that, they'd be going like that, you know, but then with this alternating like that. You could tell it was getting close to dinner time. When he heard that bell, Grandma had mother had a big old bell. I still got it at the house. And that she rang that thing and you could hear it, And he could hear that, and you was going down to the other end, and you went, well, I said, we'll fly back up to the other end. Turn the road, I'd go home. No, sir, he would not go back in that road, and if you did get him back, he would just go anywhere. You tore up everything.
Messed up your row, huh?
It's dinner time, and I'm going home. I don't care what you want to do, but I'm going home to get something to eat.
Yeah.
And he would not go back. He would just, other than that, he was a good mule, good plowing mule, gentle and everything. And, but he would not go back in that road. Go back to the other end where your sled was, where you put the plow on the sled, hook him up to the sled, and go to the house for dinner. No, sir, he would not go. No way. He just had to plow down and go to the house.
Got a mind of his own. That's cool.
He had a mind of his own, yes. And that old house stood there for years and years afterward, and they had a pigeon house there that they had. I think Witt had the pigeon house there. And there was, sometime there wasn't wild hogs like we have now. Somebody owned them. They had marks on them. The old sows have pigs in there, We'd be riding by, and brother and I would look in there, and there was old sow with pigs, Well, we'd put the dogs on the pig, old sow, and run her out. We'd stick a pig or two in the sack, tie it on to the saddle. That pig was squealing, jumping around in that sack, and you had to really hold on and ride like everything, because that horse was a bucking and everything else.
Hirsch didn't like that, huh?
He didn't like that. We'd bring them pigs home and put them in a pen and things like that. Dad always does. He said, you boys gonna get hurt doing that. He said, leave them pigs alone. He said, he'd always get on to us about that. Mm-hmm. The fences were built when we divided that property. We got ours down. Our part was down the creek, and our brothers was up in top part. The fences they'd go here and they'd go back there and this way and this way. And I told Dad, I said, how come did they do that? Well, he said, they did that because he said they go through here, maybe put a good ways, and then, let's go to that tree there. They're on that tree. Then we'll go to this one here. And that's how so when we bought that fence, before I had it surveyed. And I told Mr. Witt, I said, Mr. Witt, come out there, and he said, I want to talk to you about that fence. Well, he came out there one day, and he was an old man. He couldn't get around too well. And I told him, I said, now this is the way the fence was. I showed him where the old post was and stuff. And I said, now this is where the survey line is, right here. That's what the surveyors tell me where the survey line is. I said, I want to build a fence. I said, I want your permission that you know that I'm going to build that fence on the line. And he said, you build that fence, he said, and that is the property line. I said, all right, that's what I want to hear.
He's a pretty good neighbor, huh?
Yeah, he lived in Houston when he came out. Then his, I guess it was his grandkids or great-grandkids, they come out there years later, and they had they had a little shack out there or something like that they built, that they hunted and stuff like that they didn't have any way of coming across there except through our pasture, to get to theirs. That didn't work out.
Did y'all have a favorite swimming hole on Spring Creek?
Yeah.
Where was y'all's?
We were just from the bridge. So the bridge was right here, and the old swimming hole was right up in here somewhere. Yeah. There were people come out from Houston to picnic out there. We'd ride over here, cattle, and man, the creek was just lined with people camping and picnicking in there.
What's your favorite memory or favorite thing you like to think about growing up in this area?
Well, you went and visited. I mean, Sundays was a day you didn't work. You fed the cows naturally. You fed them and that, but you never would hook a mule up or go to the field or anything like that. And some of them old guys, they kept the suit on all day long. They wouldn't take the suit off, after they went to church. Now, why, I don't know about that, but out the saddle, he was just across the road from us over there. And he never took his white shirt off, or his suit off, Well, we always did. We dressed in our work clothes, but either Fred Brigham, they'd come over and they'd sit underneath the tree and talk in the summertime, stuff like that. And they'd mother have a meal, grandma have a meal for them. It was communication. You could talk to your neighbors. That's one of the more important things that I think that nowadays you ain't got time to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Them days you had time to do. You had time to visit. You had time to talk and communicate with people.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Hirsch, what do you remember about growing up? What's your favorite memory of growing up over that area in Westfield?
Growing up where?
In Westfield.
In Westfield and over
Oh, well, we just, I guess, went to Tomball for the movie on Saturday night. That was Daddy's treat to us, to take us to the movie in Tomball. It was the only movie around, and also he took us to that. But in Westfield, we just visited with the Baumgartners, and they'd sit out on the porch and visit, is what the guys would do. And as kids would run around the yard and play. That's what we would do with the Baumgartners mostly. They were our neighbors and friends. So.
Did your parents farm over there, or what did they do for a living?
Oh, yes, my daddy farmed lots of corn and spinach and all kind of things,
Did he
peas.
sell it in the market, or how?
Oh, yes, tomatoes. Oh, Mama packed tomatoes all the time. They had to go in a big crate and had to be packed. And he'd make 2 trips sometimes a day to Houston to get those tomatoes unloaded. That's what he did. So they had 20 acres, I think, is all their property was. And it was right under a big highline pole right there on Aldine Westfield Road. A little four-ring house is what we had.
Any other memories you want to share while we're here talking today?
Well, no, I guess we covered it pretty good that I could remember. The things that I could remember.
Well, we appreciate hearing about everything.
The one thing that I do remember was that you locked up 3 things that you locked up. And that was your smokehouse, your chicken house, and your brew house. The house stayed open, just a screen door, unhooked. They could go in, and anybody could go in, but you definitely have to lock up the chicken house and your brew house and your smokehouse. If not,
Got to keep your food locked
you
up.
have to keep that locked up, yes. But as far as anything getting stolen in the house, a dad's shotgun was sitting right there at the door, pretty close to the door. If anything went on, he could take his shotgun. And you didn't dare touch that shotgun. You was told that shotgun is, you don't touch it. And we didn't. Us boys wouldn't touch that. We was way up, I guess the first rifle I got, I guess I was 12, 13, 14 years old, something like that. And I bought it at Fritz and Norman Frederick's store, 22 rifle. And told Dad, I went up there one day and I did something, I don't know what I did, but anyhow, I seen that rifle and I don't remember what it was. It wasn't very much, $15, $20, $25, something like that, I told Dad, I said, they got a 22 rifle over there. I sure would like to have it. Yeah, you can have it. You got the money? No. Well, you got to work to get the money. And I worked on the bale, for hay baler, for half a cent a bale. Loading on the dump wagon in the back, I'd roll up maybe 15, 20 bills, then dump it, They had a pickup available such as it was. And man, I worked that summer and I bought me that rifle and I bought me a saddle and whatever else I could buy for that.
Appreciate your family coming out today and spending time with us here at the museum.
Well, I hope this some help anyhow.
Was.